So let me ask you something. If you were gone tomorrow, like, the real gone, would your kids know what you stood for? I know that's a tough question to think about. What about your grandkids? Would they know your values? Would they know your beliefs? Would they know the vision for what you had for the future? Would they even know your name? I mean, these are real thoughts. Because the trust isn't just about who gets what. It's about why they get it, how they get it, and who they're going to be expected to become. So in today's video, I'm gonna show you what I've built, my trust, the stipulations, the structure, and the safeguards that I've put in place for my own daughter and for every generation after her, so that they don't just inherit wealth, they inherit purpose. So someone recently asked me this. They said, Chris, I'm putting together a will and I want to include stipulations for my kids before they receive the money. I know you've talked about doing this yourself. Can you give me some examples? That's exactly what they asked me. Well, yes, I can, and I will. You see, when Larissa and I set up our living trust right here, we spent a ton of time thinking about this because the goal wasn't just to pass on money. That's easy. It was to pass on wisdom, discipline, and most importantly, a legacy that outlives us. So here's what we built into it. These are the key stipulations in the Naugle Living Trust. There is no immediate access to money. Our daughter doesn't just get the money. The money is owned by the trust, not the child, not any children for that matter. It's managed and distributed by a trustee or several trustees. And only when the request matches the specific guidelines that I chose. Number 2, money can only be used for these things, and I've outlined them in Article 2 and Article 3 of the trust. But let me just tell you what they are because you probably can't read that. The trustee can approve distributions for things like health, education, support, and maintenance. That's it. So that means if my daughter, my grandchildren, my wife, if they wanted to buy a new car, go on a wild vacation, the answer is a no. But for things like college, tuition, yes. Starting a business or purchasing a home, if she has a plan, maybe, but the trustee decides, and we're gonna cover that in a second. Number 3, and I'm gonna bring this home here, loans are preferred over outright distributions. I frown on distributions. So that's covered also in Article 3, pages 8 and 9, Section C. I know, crazy, right? We built in stipulations that loans are favored over handling any other type of distribution from the money in the trust. So she needs to present a reason for the request, and the trustees will approve the loan regardless, but they'll approve the loan with interest, collateral, and terms, just like a bank. This trains in financial responsibility and keeps the family trust growing because listen, you can't have just easy flow to the money, otherwise your family could squander it and you would have no legacy to pass on to the grandchildren. So let me just unpack that just a little bit. So with the trust, my daughter couldn't just go in and take a distribution unless she had a really good reason for that. What she could do is do a loan proposal to the trustee, and it could be for just about anything. And that loan proposal could be structured any way that makes it work for her. In other words, if she wanted to buy a car but couldn't afford a 5-year loan term, she could structure it any way she wants. However, she is required to make payments back because otherwise the trust will not make it. It is very easy for one generation and sometimes the second generation to squander all the money you've worked your entire life for. And my goal is to have this go multi-generational, but not because I'm trying to make the money last longer, because I'm trying to teach them something. Number 4, I wanted to make sure the money was protected, so we put in what you might call a legal firewall. In Article 3, Section 14, the spendthrift clause, what it basically says is she can't use the money as collateral without trustee approval. She can't be forced to give all the money up in a lawsuit, or can't have a spouse take it in divorce. Think about that. Let's just say Vivi were to get married to a scumbag, and that scumbag said, hey, let's go buy a yacht, let's do this, let's do that, and he coerced her into doing this. Can't get the money from the family trust because there's a trustee. That's the firewall that I'm talking about. Protection of the assets and the future legacy is very important when you do your trust, just like it was when I did mine. So to kind of bring that all home, what this did was keeps the money safe for future generations, no matter what life throws at my daughter or any future children that I might have. And number 5, this is the single most important thing. Life insurance is required. This is in Article 5. The trust must own life insurance on us, me and Larissa, but also it's going to own it on Vivi and any other children. This ensures that there's always new capital coming into the trust. It turns our family into a legacy bank that funds itself generation after generation. Let me just explain this. This is, again, like I said, the most important thing. We'll pick on Vivi. Let's say I pass away. All of my policies, okay, in my private banking system, all pay a death benefit to the trust. So the trust has millions, tens of millions of dollars. And again, I've kind of gone over the different ways she can access that money during her life or things. She totally has access, but there are rules of engagement. Now, let's just say, and I hate to even talk about this, but down the line, Vivi has a bunch of businesses she tries to do and they fail one after the other, okay? But it's not, that's fine, it's gonna happen. And at the end of her life, she has kind of run a deficit on the family trust of $4 million. Let's just pick a number. Well, the trust is mandated to make sure that she has no less than $4 million worth of death benefit, which Vivi already does right now with the policy she has. So think about this, when a child is born into the Naugle family name, the trust will buy a life insurance policy on them. And when they're young, you can get a lot of death benefit for a very little amount of money with these specially designed whole life. But what that's going to do is throughout their lives, depending on the usage of money and how they use the family trust, they're gonna have more and more life insurance. Now, not all the life insurance has to pay directly into the trust, but the trust-owned policies, the beneficiary is always the trust. So again, back to that example, Vivi runs a deficit of $4 million. She passes away. That death benefit that the trust owns must be, by definition, $4 million or more that pays back to the family banking system, replenishing all of the money that she had used during her life. Now, the next generation doesn't miss a beat. And you probably heard this before. The wealthy just keep getting wealthier. Kind of seems like money just grows on trees for the wealthy, right? Wrong. It's this. It's life insurance, folks. It's not complicated. It's just when one family member passes, that death benefit pays to the trust, making it bigger and bigger and bigger, using leverage, having the insurance companies fund your future legacy. Don't miss this step, because if you do, it doesn't matter how much financial education you teach, eventually there's an end to that legacy. And I'm going to tell you something at the very end that you're going to have to stick around and wait for that will absolutely be something that you want to hear. So before I move on to the next segment, I want to ask all of you for something, because I'm giving you lots of value here. I'd like you to click that little subscribe button right there, and also above, there's a bell. Smash the bell so you're notified every time I put out new content and all the lives that I do. Hang on while we reset. So here's some different language you can put in your will or your trust. This is kind of what a lot of people ask. Like, what should I put in there? Well, let me go into that. If you're writing your own will or trust, and a lot of people do, here are some stipulations and some different ideas you can use. First off, your child must graduate college, a trade school, or maybe even high school. Your child must work a full-time job for at least a year, even if it's in your own company. Your child must submit a business plan to have access to capital for any company or any business idea that they have. The money can only be used for a down payment on a house, if you so chose. The trustee must approve any request with written justification. I mean, some of these are a bit strict. You could set milestone ages, for example, 25% at 25 years old, 25% at 30, 50% at 33. You could require a financial literacy course. You could make them read Earl Nightingale's Strangest Secret in the World before any distribution. You could set mandatory family meetings annually where you review the family values and the family's vision. These are just a couple of the ideas. So we didn't want to raise a trust fund baby. That was mine and my wife's. We wanted to raise a legacy builder. There's a big difference. And you don't need to have millions of dollars to do this, even if you had $100,000 or a life insurance policy for any dollar amount or real estate. You can protect and empower your children with a few smart stipulations. Most people write a will and they call it a day. Hey, we're done. They don't even update it. Some go a step further and build a trust, which is a smart move, but almost no one creates the document that actually holds it all together. Let's just call that the family constitution. This is all the information that you can find in the Legacy Builder workbook. I'm going to include the Legacy Builder workbook up in the description, wherever that is, so you can kind of get some of the ideas of what does the family constitution say. So again, if you want that Legacy Builder workbook, it's up in the description. Just click the link and you can have it. So let's just take just a second to talk a little bit about what is a family constitution. Well, let me tell you what it's not. It's not a legalese. It's not about taxes, and it's not just for millionaires. It's a written declaration of what your family believes in, what your family stands for, and what you want to protect. A blueprint for your family's future. Think of it like the US Constitution. Short, powerful, built for freedom, not control. Your family constitution isn't just to control behavior, it's to pass down your philosophy, your philosophical identity, and your purpose. And I have all of that right here. So let's just talk a little bit about the elements of building a lasting family legacy. So first off, like, this might not be for everybody, but you could build a family office, build a financial A-team. You're gonna need someone to implement this or enhance it. Okay, so make sure you find that person and turn the strategy into execution. That's one thing. A lot of people have ideas, but they don't have the implementation. This is another good one. We do this as well, but every year, set a family retreat. If you got a private foundation, your private foundation could fund this, and this is where you talk about your charitable giving. But a family retreat is where every year you go somewhere else. We go to the Plaza Hotel in New York City, and we talk about all of this. And what that does is it creates rituals. So your family looks forward to this retreat, but that retreat also gives you that quiet time to really discuss, how do we keep this going? Another thing you could pull out of that Legacy Builder course is the Human Capital Expander, about how you can invest in your family and the people within your family. In the Family Constitution, well, you know, this is my focus today. This is what we do, but I'm really trying to give you some pointers on what you can do. Interactive wealth, make money a teaching tool. I mean, teach them how to have fun with it. The Rockefeller method is exactly what the Rockefellers used to preserve wealth for multiple generations. I'm just trying to get you started here, give you a couple little pieces to get your mind really thinking. So let's go through a little exercise to help you prepare for that, okay? All of this information I gave you is in that Legacy Builder, which is above. You can find a link in the description, and this video also just gives you some guidance. So number one, start with the legacy questions. If you could leave your family one thing other than money, what would it be? So you might have to go back and watch this again, but download and probably print out that legacy workbook and grab a notebook, because these are some of the questions you want to start asking yourself. How do you define legacy? What do you want your children and grandchildren to remember you for? That's a tough one, huh? What are you currently doing to live your legacy? Are you living your perfect day? And what regrets or mistakes have taught you the most? My gosh, I could write a novel on that. So extract all of that wisdom and write it all out. Your life's most important lessons. What are your creeds? What decisions changed and shaped your life? What's your best advice on relationships, on money, on faith, on work ethic, or even health? What habits and traditions have you made for yourself that have made your family stronger? See, this all becomes the intellectual legacy that can guide your children. Because when you're not around, you can't answer the questions. So this is your chance to set those answers for questions you won't be around for. You also have to design your family's governance. I know this sounds bad, governance, right? But what I want you to do is I want you to be really confident and well organized when you do this. What's your family's core values? Generosity, grit, stewardship, faith. I mean, these are all important things. What behaviors or attitudes are non-negotiable for you? What traditions do you want to keep going? I mean, church, make them go to church every Sunday in order to have access to any money. You can do anything, and it's all in there because thou with the gold makes the rules, whether you're here or up in heaven. Let me just mention again, remember I said we do that family retreat every single year. We go to the Plaza Hotel. My daughter knows this, and she talks about this every year. This is where you get to talk about legacy, those hard decisions you don't want to have at home. But when you're in that setting, you build that retreat into their mind. They know that that's what you're going to talk about. Future. Even a future when you're not here. Hard discussions, but very important ones. And I know you've probably all had a situation like mine, you know, where you're talking to your mom or dad, and they're going through, showing you, hey, here's where the code is for the safe, here's where this is, here's where the policy is, here's all the accounts, you know, and the passwords. It's just like,
I don't want to talk about this, Mama, but
you have to. So that retreat, you make that where those discussions happen. So there's nothing off lines. You don't have to get into that sentimental
stuff. Oh, Mom, I don't want to talk about this.
That's what you're there for, to talk about the day when you're no longer here. One of the things I mentioned earlier that's really important is choosing your board of trustees, because remember, they're going to have a lot of power in regards to your family trust. You can use that worksheet from the Family Constitution Workbook to guide this. I mean, that's how I did it. I just cheated a little bit. Who in your life demonstrates wisdom, the character, the generosity, and most importantly, I think the discipline that you would want? And that's who you would think about to trust to teach your kids when you're gone. So I want you to think about that. Who would you trust to teach your kids when you're gone? Whew, that's a tough one, isn't it? It's not just about having a lawyer or a CPA. This is way beyond that. It's about surrounding your family with mentors and models. All of you, at one point or another, will have mentors that will shape your life. Give your children that same ability. Allow your children to use your family trust to pay for that kind of education. You know, you notice how I said earlier, there's really no rules to funding education. Now, all of your minds went to college tuition. Well, what about masterminds? Funding a really powerful mastermind where your children get to use money from the trust to go to that. What about mentorship programs? Yeah, that all counts. Sometimes I think that's far more important than the education they're going to get in college or anywhere else, because that's real life. So when this video's done, print out that workbook and start writing your family constitution. Just do it draft style, just pen and paper. No need for perfection. This is just a simple starting place. Start with your name, your last name, your credence. Your family exists to live with purpose, with love for one another and stewardship. Let's make this simple. I'll give you an example. Start like this. The Naugle, insert your last name, family exists to live with purpose and love for one another, and steward God's resources for future generations. We value generosity, resilience, faith, and growth. So all that stuff we just talked about, you know, essentially your creed, make sure you put that in your trust or as an appendix inside the trust. A statement of purpose, if you will. The trustee can use this as guidance when you're no longer here to tell them how to do that. So why does all this matter for my trust? Well, let me tell you a little bit. I know that someday I'm not going to be here. I started late. Vivi, you know, she'll probably be 30s. I don't even like to think about this, but in her late 30s, I won't be here anymore. So there's a lot of life lessons that are going to have to be learned. And the one thing I didn't want to have happen is she has access to millions and millions of dollars or is swayed to spend that money down. And I also wanted to make sure that she had a much bigger head start in life than all of her peers. She doesn't have to go through the same things that we all had to go through, not just because she's got access to capital, but because she has to learn how to access the capital. She has to literally become her own bank in order to do it. Because the ultimate really is being your own bank. So the use of loans instead of handouts, well, that's one really important thing. Mandatory life insurance owned by the trust. You remember I mentioned that. That's essential, and it's only whole life that we use. The wealth is preserved, not distributed, until its purpose is demonstrated. Let that sink in. Purpose must be demonstrated. And the trustees' decisions are based on health, education, support, and character. See, we're not just passing down money here. We're passing down meaning. Meaning, that's what lasts. There are so many things that I skipped, and I know there's a lot more I could have unpacked here. I could have read the whole darn trust. But all of that's in that legacy builder that I gave you up front. It's just kind of a little starting place. It's how you can get off to success and apply this. So make sure you click that link, grab that. And also, let me just finish up by saying this. Build something that outlives you. You don't have to get it perfect. Please don't try for perfection. Just build it. You just have to start. Because someday your children are going to be looking for guidance. And your constitution, that can be their compass. A couple other little things. Now, I know this is above and beyond, but these are some other things I did. Maybe you've all seen my TEDx talk. It's called A Letter to My Daughter, Rethink Money. I still can't watch that thing without crying. I literally wrote a letter. And that letter is in my safe so that when I die, my daughter will read that. It's the same as the TEDx, but when she reads it, that gives her those 6 laws of wealth told in parables and the 10 rules of prosperity. I'm going to do another video all about that. The other things that I've done is I literally, me and Hannah wrote a children's book. And that children's book has a basis in money, but it's far more than that. It's about love. It's about not taking and taking. It's about giving. And then to go one step further, I'm writing another book, which will be out end of this year, which is 2025, that is literally a book of stories that it's told in third person about a father teaching his daughter these laws, the lessons, the laws of wealth, but doing it as life demands it. So these are just different things I'm doing to try to set a legacy, because someday I'll be gone, just like all of you. That's the thing. We don't have a lot of time here, so use it wisely. So hey, last but not least, if you liked this video, check this one out right here, Vivi Lucky Jeans. If you liked what I talked about the policies, you'll see exactly what I did for my daughter. Thanks for joining. We'll see you next time.